Hello, everyone. CM Freeze here. And as of today, it is officially Monday, the Monday right after the NFL draft. And I took all day Sunday to review film and study every single Atlanta Falcons draft pick that they made so that I can give my official grade for the Atlanta Falcons 2024 NFL draft. Now, disclaimer, obviously, none of these players have had a single snap. So the grade that I give now is going to probably be much different from when they actually play. So this is all just pre-draft analysis, how I think they're going to work with Atlanta, how I think they're going to be as a player. So I could be completely wrong on this. Now, I've been debating whether I should just go over every single pick and then give my overall grade. But what I think I'm just going to do is I'll just give my overall grade now, so no one skips till the end of the video. And then I'll go down every single pick and give my overall grade for every single pick as well. I'm going to give the Atlanta Falcons draft a C. Just a straight up C. And honestly, I think I'm being generous when I give them a C as well. I think I could easily give them a C- or a D+, but I am just going to give them a C. But I think that's a very generous C. I think if you look at what other people are probably saying about the Falcons draft class, it's probably lower than that. I'm probably going a little bit higher than I should with the C. Just, I feel like a C- feels too low. We'll see. I'll go over every single pick and you guys can decide. Starting from the top with Michael Penix Jr. at 8. Now, this is definitely the most controversial pick that the Falcons made. And let's first go over the pros that Michael Penix Jr. has. Michael Penix Jr. has a great arm, and he has really good accuracy. Michael Penix Jr., because he was hurt so much, his first 4 years, he had a season-ending injury. He knows how to get rid of the ball fast. He does not want to get hurt again. So it's kind of like a pro to him being hurt so much. Yes, major con that he's been hurt so much, and he does have an injury history. But Michael Penix Jr. gets rid of the ball fast. He's not afraid to just let it rip. Cannon arm too. So if you got a speedster on your team, you can literally just run a vertical and Michael Penix Jr. can get it to him. Penix is also decently fast for a quarterback. I believe he ran a 4.57 in the combine. So Penix Jr. is athletic, and he's got a cannon arm. That's kind of where it ends, though, unfortunately. Yes, so his cons are, he does have very bad injury history. 4 big injuries in 4 straight years. Yes, he's been healthy back-to-back years, but he's also been with Washington, who has one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. He also was playing with 3 wide receivers that all was drafted this season, with Polk and Romo Dunze and another wide receiver that they had. So he's had really good talent to play with in Washington, and he's gone up against subpar defenses. He's gone up against the Pac-12 defense. So Oregon and USC and Arizona, all these teams with below average defenses, while he's had phenomenal offenses to work with. And that's not to say that that doesn't mean anything. That could mean nothing at all. That's just something to point out that I feel like Michael Penix Jr. really hasn't been challenged. Now, in an NFL offense, you want your quarterback to be put in the best situation possible. So he's proven that when in a good situation, he can succeed. But the best quarterbacks, even with their worst teams, can still play great. Look at Patrick Mahomes this year. Everyone said that this is the worst offense that Mahomes has ever had, and he still won the Super Bowl. Yes, he had a decent O-line. Yes, he still had Travis Kelce, but this was Travis Kelce's worst year by far. He definitely didn't look as athletic and fast as we've seen the Travis Kelce in the past. And in terms of wide receivers, Rashid Rice is the only reliable wide receiver he had. So yes, Patrick Mahomes still had a solid team, but it's not like he had a god-tier offense or anything like that. But with Michael Penix Jr., just at pick 8, at pick 8, we took the 4th quarterback off the board who's going to sit for 2 to 3 years. And that's just where my issue lies. With the 8th overall pick, we drafted a pick that's not even going to see the field for 2 years. Minimum. could be longer depending on how well Kirk Cousins plays. What if Kirk Cousins plays out of his mind and then Michael Penix Jr., who's already a 24-year-old quarterback, doesn't even see the field until he's 27 or 28? With the 8th overall pick, we drafted a quarterback who's not going to see the field at 27 or 28. It's just, the Falcons are in win now mode, but at pick 8, picked for the future. A team that is making picks for the future is a team that already has success. You look at when the Packers did it, when they had Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, they'd already made the playoffs the previous year. Jordan Love was drafted in the late 20s. Same exact thing when they did that with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Drafting for the future is when you have a later round pick, or hell, even a mid-round pick, and you draft for the future with it. You don't draft for the future at pick 8, especially when you say you're in win now mode, yet you haven't won anything. The most wins the Falcons have had is 7 wins in the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, the Falcons haven't made the playoffs. But we're preparing for the future. It's just a very fine line that the Falcons are trying to walk here with Michael Penix Jr., and who knows, it could turn out great. It could turn out great. But is Michael Penix Jr. really the quarterback that you want to risk your jobs on and risk your career on and risk the franchise on? I personally don't think so. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong about it. Falcons obviously love him, but man, this pick really leaves a sour taste in my mouth, and hopefully I'm wrong about this. Hopefully Michael Penix Jr. is phenomenal, but we'll just see. 2nd round pick. Falcons drafted Rook Auroror out of Clemson. Rook Auroror is a good player. He's not a bad player. And honestly, if the Falcons would have stuck at pick 42, it was either 42 or 43. I think it was pick 43 and drafted him, I would have had no complaints here. No complaints. The issue lies where the Falcons gave up a 3rd round pick to select him. The Atlanta Falcons gave up a 3rd round pick to move up 8 spots. Now, yes, they did get a 6th round pick in return, but to move up 8 spots, we then moved down over 100 spots. And to be fair, I don't think Rook would have been there at the Falcons pick, because then right after the Falcons picked him, Jerron Newton got drafted, Sweat got drafted, and Fisk got drafted. So 3 D tackles got drafted behind Rook. So he probably wouldn't have been there at 43. And the Falcons really liked him, so go and get your guy. But at the end of the day, would have you rather just stayed at 43 and drafted a different D tackle, and then in the 3rd round got another key contributor? Like, there was still some really good wide receivers in the 3rd round that we could have picked, or we could have taken another edge rusher or a corner. And that's just the thing here. Is Rook going to be better than the 3rd round pick we could have selected? Obviously, we can't say now, but Rook, he's also a run blocking defensive tackle. He's not really going to be a guy that gets you pressure. In 3 years at Clemson, he got 12 sacks. So, 4 sacks a season is decent, but he's better known for his run blocking. I believe that he had 24 tackles for loss, so in his 12 years, so double the amount of sacks that he got. And I think he'll fit in pretty well. We'll have Grady Jarrett and we'll have David Onyemata as our 2 D tackles there in the middle. Yes, you're in a 3-4, so Rook could also be a 3rd guy there, but there's also Eddie Goldman, so we'll see what happens. I do think that Rook Auroror is a good fit for Atlanta in our 3-4 scheme, and I do think he'll be good at eating defensive blocks up. It's not a terrible pick, but he is more of a project D tackle, and he's going to a good situation. But just like Michael Penix Jr., we're drafting a project D tackle to sit and learn behind Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, and he's not helping us now. We're again drafting for the future. If you look at the Falcons' biggest needs, I would say their biggest need, 1 is edge. Edge rusher is their biggest need. We don't have any edge rushers. We have Arnold Ebiketie and Lorenzo Carter. Those are our best edge rushers. Combined, I think they had maybe 10 sacks. So we don't have edge rusher help. That's our biggest need. I would also argue that corner or at least secondary in general is a big need. Yes, we have Jesse Bates, one of the best safeties in the league. Yes, we have AJ Terrell, really good corner one. And we also have, I'm blanking on his name, Clark Phillips. We have Clark Phillips, really good slot corner. So we have 3 good pieces in the secondary when you at least need 5 to 6. So I would argue another corner or possibly a strong safety, but I guess we have Helms. But another corner would be great, especially considering that AJ Terrell's on the last year of his contract. And I haven't heard anything about a contract extension with AJ Terrell because he has had hot and cold streaks. So I would argue that edge is our biggest need. Corner's up there as well. I would say that wide receiver is also kind of a need. Yes, we've addressed wide receiver a lot, but it doesn't hurt to give Kirk Cousins more weapons. We have Drake London and we got Darnell Mooney, but Darnell Mooney had one really good season and he hasn't looked that good the last 2 years. Rondell Moore, who also hasn't looked good. So we do have some weapons now, but they're kind of unproven, and we're just hoping that in a better situation they'll play better. So I'd argue that wide receiver is a bigger need. I would argue that wide receiver, corner, and edge are all bigger needs than quarterback and defensive tackle. And the Falcons, with their first 2 picks, have drafted for the future, which again, if we were already a good team and we made it to the playoffs last year, I would be down for it. I'd be like, you know what? I love that we're drafting for the future so that we have Kirk Cousins replacement and Grady Jarrett's replacement. But that's not what happened. We sucked ass last year, went 7-10, and had the 8th overall pick. We're drafting for the future when we're in win now mode, and it makes no sense. How are you in win now mode but drafting for the future? And we gave up a 3rd round pick for Rukaroror. So it's so hard to judge both Penix Jr. and Rukaroro right now because they're going to have minimal playing time. Our 1st and 2nd round picks are going to have minimal playing time because we're drafting for the future. So Michael Penix Jr. and Rukaroro, I'm going to give a C rating because in a vacuum, they're good players. And yes, I'm glad they get to sit behind veterans and learn, and in the future they can develop. But like I said, I think edge, corner, and wide receiver are all bigger needs for the team to help us win now, but we're drafting for the future. We're in win now mode and drafting for the future, and both Michael Penix Jr. and Rukaroro are going to get C gradings for me because of it. Now we're getting on to the 2 picks that I think were the best 2 picks for the Atlanta Falcons in the entire draft, Braylon Trice and Brendan Dolores out of Oregon. Starting off with Braylon Trice out of Washington. Like I said, edge rushers are our biggest need. I think our 3rd and 4th round pick are actually going to be the 2 guys that make the most impact on the team this year, which is kind of crazy to think about. But Braylon Trice out of Washington joining his friend and Michael Penix Jr. Braylon Trice is a pretty solid edge rusher for Washington. Now, he did have a bad combine, and he did test well, and that is what has brought his stock down to the 3rd round. And Trice is kind of interesting because, like I said, he tested bad, but his production was really good in Washington. He had a lot of sacks there, and he was able to set the edge and win the edge a lot there with them. I think he'll fit very well in our 3-4 scheme, being an outside linebacker. And I think that he'll be able to split reps. We'll have Arnold Ebiketie, Lorenzo Carter, and I think he'll be able to fit in and rotate with those guys almost right away, basically. And we'll see how it works out. He could go through some rough patches. I'm not saying he's going to be elite or anything, but I think he'll be a very good rotational piece off the edge for us. And like I said, the testing was scary. I wish he would have done better and performed better. It's kind of like he just didn't try, really. So we'll see what happens. He also lost a lot of weight for the combine. In Washington, he was almost 30 pounds heavier than what he was. So that could be something else to why he didn't test as well, because he dropped 30 pounds. So we'll see how the Atlanta Falcons develop him, but I'm really happy that we got Braylon Trice and he fell to us in the 3rd. I saw some people even having him slide into the 1st round. So for him to be able to fall to us in the 3rd, I think is great value for us. And I truly think that he will get more starting reps than our first 2 round picks. And then we also got Brendan Dolores out of Oregon, defensive tackle. Brendan Dolores is very weird because he's not big enough to be a defensive tackle, but he's not skinny enough, doesn't weigh or not like athletic enough to be an edge rusher. He weighs 283, and that's such a weird weight. For a defensive tackle, you would like to see them be over 300 pounds. Like, if you look at Rukaroror, he's basically there, but he's also 6'4", so he's bigger. And then you look at Brandon Dolores, and he's 6'3", 280, which I guess only 200 pounds less and 1 inch shorter isn't that bad. But he's at this really weird spot where he can either bulk up and play defensive tackle, or he can lose weight and play edge. I'm pretty sure he came out and said that he's an edge rusher, if I'm not mistaken. I think Brendan Dolores views himself as an edge rusher, but in a 3-4 defensive scheme, I could easily see us playing him in the inside, outside of our nose tackle there on the end. Brendan Dolores, really good guy out of Oregon. He is older, and that's something I did notice about our draft class, is we basically drafted, I think Rukaroror's 22, and then Braylon Trice and Brandon Dolores is 23, and then Michael Penix Jr. is 24. So the youngest person we've drafted so far is Rukaroror at 22. We went older in this draft class for sure, but I'm happy with Brandon Dolores. I think that we can develop him well. The only issue is, what is he going to play? Is he going to gain weight and play defensive tackle, or is he going to lose weight and play edge rusher? Plus, we also need to figure this out fast as well. Are we going to be rotating him in? Are we not? I think that's a very big thing for us. So I'm going to give both Braylon Trice and Brandon Dolores a B rating, because in the 3rd and 4th round, we selected guys who I think can make immediate impacts on the team, actual win now picks. And I think if they're developed properly, I think that they could be more. I think that Brandon Dolores has a higher ceiling, actually, than Braylon Trice. I think Bryce might be an edge rusher that's already kind of seen his ceiling, or will have minimal ceiling for Atlanta. But I'm going to give both Braylon Trice and Brandon Dolores a B rating. Maybe Braylon Trice is like a B minus, and Brandon Dolores is a B to B plus, because I do like the Dolores pick more. Now, these next 4 picks, I'm going to be talking about a lot less. JD out of Notre Dame here. He's basically a linebacker who's already reached his peak. He's a solid linebacker, and he was the captain of the Notre Dame's defense. So he is a locker room presence, very good locker room presence, standout guy that the Atlanta Falcons want to have. He can maybe rotate in, give rest for Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson. Who's the other guy? Nate Landman, I think's his name. We already have a really good linebacker group. I think he's mostly just going to be there to be a special teamer and also to be a good locker room presence. And if anyone gets hurt, or if some guys need some rest, he'll be able to rotate in there and play some snaps here and there. But he's basically a linebacker that's already reached his peak, already reached his ceiling. He doesn't have much more he can go, because he's really good fundamentally, but just his athleticism isn't there like you would like to see. This is more of a locker room presence kind of guy, and just someone that can rotate in when other guys get tired. Then both with Jace McClain and, well, I'll just go in order. So for JD, I'm going to give this like a B minus or a C plus rating. It's the 5th round at this point, so it's like we took a guy who's going to be good in the locker room and can give our linebackers some breathing room. You know, B minus, C plus. Then we got Chase McCollin, running back. It's the 6th round at this point. It's the 6th round. So you can't be too upset, but it's like we already have Bijan and we already have Tyler Algier. At best, this is our running back 3. I think you could easily sign a running back for $1 million to be a running back 3, maybe even less than that. But we really like Chase McCollin. He's going to be a special teamer. Not much more I can say about that. I know they had a big injury, I think 1 to 2 years ago. Then went to Alabama. Did pretty good with Bama here. And then we also got Casey Washington out of Illinois. This guy is basically just an athlete who is a really good special teamer. He's a special teamer. Like, that's what he did in Washington, or in Illinois. He was basically a special teamer. And if you look at our wide receiver room, I don't see him getting any reps. I don't see Casey Washington doing anything unless we have a couple of wide receivers who receive big injuries. I don't even know if Casey Washington is going to make our squad, because we'll have Drake London, we will have Darnell Mooney, we will have Rondell Moore, we will have Laviska Shenault. I swear we signed another wide receiver too. Maybe not. So maybe he actually could as a 6th or 7th wide receiver. It just depends on how many wide receivers we choose to bring on our roster. But he's a special teams guy. He's really going to have to play well with the special teams to get a roster spot. We'll see what happens with Casey Washington. So if you can't tell the reoccurring theme, I'm going to be giving both Chase McCollum and Casey Washington C gradings, because we're at a point where I don't really feel bad about the picks, but I don't feel good either. I mean, it's 5th and 6th round picks, and it's like in the 5th and 6th round, we've taken a couple of special teamers and a depth linebacker. We're just filling out the roster. It's not like we're getting steals from like, holy crap, how did he fall to us? Or, man, he's going to play great in our Falcons system. But it's not like it's like, why are we drafting this guy? He shouldn't have even been drafted. He's trash. He has no value to the team. I feel indifferent about these guys. So like I said, Penix Jr., C, probably maybe even C-, and then Rukororor, C+. So we'll go C-, C+, B-, B+, C, 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 and then Zion Rogue. Honestly, C-, for him. He's just another defensive tackle, but we already drafted 3 defensive linemen, so we're really overhauling the defensive line. I just think that this is your Georgia pick. Falcons draft a Georgia player every single year. He's decent, doesn't have much of a ceiling. Zion does. I watched him at Georgia. He didn't really get that many snaps too. He's decent, all right? He's okay, but he's a 6th round defensive tackle. So again, C pick for me. So in the Falcons draft class, 6 out of their 8 players were C's, and then we have 2 B's. So that's why I'm giving our ranking a C. I think that's fair. A couple of C-, couple of C+. Just when your first and 2nd round pick are guys that aren't really going to see the field for the first 2 years. I mean, Rukororor can definitely maybe see the field here and there, but he's not going to have that much of an impact. He's a developmental defensive tackle who's going to sit behind David Onyemata and Grady Jarrett. So that's why I gave the Falcons draft what I did. Please let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my takes on these guys. Thank you all so much for watching, and peace.